Hey there again, lesson number 10. So this would actually be a Thursday lesson. I'm going to preview the vocabulary for the Susan B. Anthony article. And I'm going to do that by showing you some vocabulary words, letting you have a moment to think about that word and see if you can recall its meaning if you happen to know it already. And then sharing with you the meaning and its relationship to the article. So I'm going to pull this word. This will be our first one. Legacy. Legacy. Is this word familiar to you? A legacy is someone's reputation after they've died. Okay? So we want our legacies to be good ones. Okay? Susan B. Anthony's legacy is one of fighting for women's rights to vote. And she did a lot of things in her life, but that would be the key legacy for which she is known. Legacy. All right, the next one, which you will see in the article, and I think you know this, the polls. I think that this is a pretty universal word for the place that we vote. So the polls. There will be a story, a little what we call vignette, a little short story that you will read about Susan B. Anthony and an experience that she had at the polls. I won't tell you what it is. I'll let you read that for yourselves. All right. Next one. Stubborn. Is this a word that you know? You may know it, and you may use it to describe someone in your household, occasionally a child or a spouse. Stubborn is to not give up or not giving up. A person who is stubborn doesn't give up. Or we might use the phrasal verb give in. So give up, give in. A stubborn person doesn't give in. If I feel very strongly about something and I don't want to change my mind, then I might not give in, or I continue to be stubborn about that idea that I have. Susan B. Anthony was very stubborn in that she didn't take no for an answer. She kept fighting for what she believed in, and she didn't back down from that. All right, this phrase is a phrase that you will have today. Take something for granted. Take something for granted. Think about that one a second. When we take something for granted, we accept it without much consideration. Okay, and by accept I mean to mentally accept it. So a lot of times we take for granted the freedoms that we have, okay, or the things that we have in our life. We just, in our minds, we have kind of learned to believe that these things are there for us, and we don't necessarily really appreciate them like we should. So when we take something for granted, we just don't give it a lot of consideration. We just know it's going to be there. And I think, boy, we're in a situation right now where that's certainly true, because we have taken we have taken for granted our ability to move about freely in our world, in our lives. And suddenly, when that was taken away from us, it was like, wait, what? But we never really gave it much consideration. It's just what you do. You get in your car, you go where you want to go, you do what you want to do. Susan B. Anthony fought, for the women's right to vote. Today's women sort of take for granted that we can go to the polls and we can vote. And we need sometimes to stop and think that other people really fought hard for the freedoms that we enjoy today. Some people gave their lives for the freedoms that we enjoy today. So taking things for granted, we need to be kind of cautious about that and not do that quite as much as we do. Okay, this word may be new to you. Suffrage. S-U-F-F-R-A-G-E, suffrage. It refers to the right to vote. The movement that Susan B. Anthony and her colleagues were involved in was called the Women's Suffrage Movement. And that is what it was known of, all through history, and we refer to that today. So suffrage is the right to vote. You might have possibly seen, I doubt it, but there's a movie that was made a few years ago called The Suffragettes, and G-E-T-T-E-S, Suffragettes, and it's about women who fought to get the right to vote. Eventually, in the United States, the right to vote was granted in what's called the 19th Amendment to our Constitution, and that is the amendment that allowed women to vote. And that didn't happen until, I believe it was about the year 1906. I think I need to double check that date, but it's, 1920. So it's been 100 years. But anyway, you might like reading about various women who were involved in the movement, the suffragettes, we call them. All right, another word that I believe that you will be familiar with, fine. Not the adjective that describes a feeling or how something looks, feeling fine or looking fine, but as a noun, and it then in this case refers to a charge that you must pay for breaking a law, and it's a sort of a way of punishing for crimes, small and large. So a very large crime could involve a very large fine as well as prison time, jail time, whatever. Small things such as not parking in the right place might cost you a small fine. If you don't pay it, though, you might get in some bigger trouble. You'll read in the article about Susan B. Anthony being fined for some of her actions. Immortalize. The word mortal always refers to life, okay? Immortalize refers to causing someone's reputation to remain in the public eye forever, okay? Someone's reputation remaining in the public eye forever. Public eye could refer to things we read, museum things, whatever, just, things that we might see in the media. So a person who has been immortalized, there might be many stories that are told about them way after they have died. And sometimes that immortalization is a very positive thing, that the stories are told because they're so rich and important. Memorials might be created, museum exhibits might be created to immortalize this person. as is the case, certainly, with our character of Susan B. Anthony. But some people have been immortalized for their evil doings. And so, it can be good or bad. Immortalize. The next one, controversial. Controversial comes from controversy. Con always means against, okay? Controversy, of course, is when there is disagreement. And controversial would be then to describe a person or a situation as one that is filled with disagreement, or that causes an emotion of disagreement among people. So a figure such as Susan B. Anthony, we describe as a controversial figure because she went against the normal thinking of that day, and she brought ideas to the public that many people weren't ready to accept, men as well as some women. She was a controversial figure. I'm sure that you are familiar with many controversial figures from your own backgrounds, and of course there are so many that are on the world stage today, and with social media and 24-hour news, it's pretty easy to find out who is controversial out there, right? Okay. Are you familiar with this word? Activist. You know it comes from the word active. An activist is someone who publicly fights for a cause. So when people are marching in protest, when people are making their presence known on social media and so forth to push for some sort of agreement or law or rights or whatever, we call them an activist. I would love to know about the activists in your own cultures who have influenced your lives. There's so many who have influenced mine in U.S. history and in the U.S. today. Activist. Okay, to reach for this one. Rival. Is this a word that you know? Rival. A rival is an enemy, or could be a competitor. A rival could be some person with whom you have an ongoing argument. You can't stand to be around them. You have very serious disagreement. A rival competitor could be somebody, say, who, two brands that fight against each other for attention in the media. So Toyota and Honda maybe are rival brands. And so with reference to the article, you will read about some of the rivals whom Susan B. Anthony encountered in her lifetime. All right. And the word determined. I believe this is probably very familiar to you, but if you are determined, you are not going to give up. Sort of similar to stubborn. They're very close a stubborn person is often seen a little more negatively. A determined person is usually seen in a more positive light. Determined to work hard to get what you believe is important. Determined. And the last one, I think could be new to you. Advocate. Okay? Now, this word can also be pronounced advocate. If I pronounce it advocate, it is a noun. If I use the pronunciation advocate, and you'll hear the inflection differently in the word when it's said this way, advocate, it's a verb. And if you are advocating for something, okay, then you are pushing support for that. Perhaps it is an issue, such as the right to vote, okay? If you advocate for the right to vote, then it means that you push for that. You work for that. You support that in your words and your actions. You know, you can advocate for a lot of things. And when you advocate for things, then you become an advocate, okay? So Susan B. Anthony was an advocate for the right to vote. She advocated to see that happened for women. In your world, you may be an advocate for any number of things. Maybe at dinner time, you're an advocate for your kids to eat their vegetables, okay? Maybe in your daily life, you're an advocate for some cause that is important to you in your life. So another word that you will encounter in the article several times probably. All right, so that is a wrap-up of the preview on vocabulary. I hope that you will enjoy this reading. I will go ahead and also assign the multiple choice and true false items. I certainly don't expect that you do all of those. Feel free to do the ones that you want. I think it's they're pretty short. I think there's only 5 or 6 of each one, so kind of fun to do and test your memory, but I'm mostly interested in your simply reading and thinking about this topic. And in our next session, we will discuss the life of Susan B. Anthony in a little more detail. And I have some pictures to share with you as well. So I hope that's helpful, and I will look forward to talking to you in another day or so. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'm ready to turn off my computers for the day. Bye, everyone.